Streaming will start soon. Please stay on hold. Streaming will start soon. Please stay on hold. Connection failed. I'm going to retry. But streaming will still be starting very, very soon. Please stay on hold. Streaming will start soon. Please stay on hold. Meanwhile, I should have played some music, but since you must be very well aware that connection is getting failed every time I'm trying to connect, so it's very difficult for me to be able to do anything. So I have no idea what to do. And since I have no idea what to do, so I'm only mm, 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 mm. Streaming will start soon. We will soon begin.
Richard with this vision.
Why?
हेलो
Ah,
मैं ये बोल रहा था 150 की चिकन ले लेते हैं उसके बाद रोटी ले लेते हैं समझे तो रोटी खाया जाएगा
ठीक है ठीक है
300 में पूरा पेट भर के हो जाएगा
ठीक है
तो आप क्या बोल रहे हैं
कुछ नहीं भाई, मैं तो क्या बोलूं। अरे
पीना है तो शाम को आना पड़ेगा इधर अभी नहीं मिले
नहीं तो अब पैसा तो बचेगा ही नहीं तो का
वही तो
हाँ तो फिर रहने दो, फिर अपना जो करना करो।
वही चिकन लेके जाते और रोटी भी पैक करके लेके जाते
हाँ हाँ ठीक है
हाँ
ठीक है
ठीक है
चलो। He is asking for my consent. I don't have much to say, to be honest. अमितवा अमितवा रहल भाई। साला कौन गोली चला दे रहा है। मेंटल है काफी। Cheru! Sakti! Ah. Yeah, all right. Let's go. Let's take up the very recent text that I just sent you. It talks about, so it has the first question that it has is, it has two assertions. Assertion number one says that the subject of the intransitive verb and the direct object of the transitive verb are in the same case form in languages with ergative absolutive system of case. The second assertion says that languages with ergative absolutive system of case may have object verb agreement. So I think yes, both of these assertions are correct. Now I want you to elaborate on both of these assertions.
Certainly. For languages with an ergative absolutive case system, 1. Assertion. 1. The subject of an intransitive verb and the direct object of a transitive verb are in the same case form in languages with an ergative absolutive system of case. Explanation. In these languages, the subject of intransitive verbs and the direct object of transitive verbs are both marked with the absolutive case. For instance, in the ergative absolutive system, a sentence like she sleeps intransitive and she sees him transitive would mark she and him in the same absolutive case. The subject of transitive verbs, however, is marked differently with the ergative case. 2. Assertion. 2. Languages with ergative absolutive system of case may have object-verb agreement. Explanation. This means that in these languages, the verb can agree with the object in terms of features like number, person, or gender. For example, if a language has object-verb agreement, the verb form might change depending on the direct object's characteristics, even though the object and subject are marked the same way, absolutive. In summary, the ergative absolutive system involves having the same case form for both intransitive subjects and transitive objects, but these languages can also show agreement between the verb and the object.
Now, the next question is that if a language places the verb at the end of the sentence, that is, verb final language, it may have the correlation values as the first noun plus postposition, second main verb plus auxiliary, third the third is the standard of comparison plus.
In a verb final language, where the verb appears at the end of the sentence, the correlation values typically reflect the structure of how other elements are ordered around the verb. 1. Noun plus postposition. In such languages, the noun usually comes before a postposition that indicates the noun's relationship to other elements in the sentence. For example, in Japanese, you might say, book on the table, where on the table is the postposition showing the book's location. 2. Main verb plus auxiliary. These languages can also use an auxiliary verb that appears after the main verb, often to provide additional grammatical information like tense or mood. For instance, in Korean, the verb root comes first, followed by auxiliary verbs that provide nuances like politeness or tense. 3. Standard of comparison plus comparative adjective. While this may not be as directly related to verb final syntax, languages can still use structures where the standard of comparison is mentioned before the comparative adjective. 4. Verb plus negative. The verb is placed at the end, and any negative particles or auxiliary verbs that indicate negation are added after the main verb. So for a verb final language, all these elements are relevant. The correct answer, therefore, would be all the above are correct.
So,
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. I could not understand what you said. You're welcome. If you have any more questions or need further clarification, feel free to ask.
so can you speak a little more elaborately on what standard of comparison plus comparative adjective means and what it really is with an example? Also, provide me the Korean example of main verb plus auxiliary with its, English glossing and transcription. And yeah, so do both those tasks that I just told you.
Certainly. Standard of comparison plus comparative adjective. This construction involves comparing one thing to another using a comparative adjective. The standard of comparison is the thing you're comparing to. For example, in English, you might say John is taller than Mark. Here, taller is the comparative adjective, and Mark is the standard of comparison. Korean example with main verb plus auxiliary. In Korean, verbs often come with auxiliary verbs to express various nuances like tense, aspect, or mood. For example, the sentence I am eating can be translated into Korean as 나는 먹고 있어요. Here's the breakdown. 나는, subject, 먹고, eating, main verb connective suffix. am, auxiliary verb indicating ongoing action. In this construction, 먹고 is the main verb to eat with the connective suffix go, and 있어요 is the auxiliary verb indicating the ongoing aspect of the action.
So remember this example, or this Korean example, and I'll ask you about it at a later part of this conversation. Now, moving on to the next question. The next question talks about Veneman. So Veneman is associated with head and dependent marking. Now, elaborately explain what head and dependent marking is, how Veneman is related with head and dependent marking, in which work was this concept proposed, what year. So yeah, go ahead and do that.
Head and dependent marking is a concept in linguistic typology referring to how grammatical relations are marked in a language, specifically how the relationship between the head of a construction, such as a noun in a noun phrase, and its dependents, like adjectives or modifiers, is indicated. Head marking. In head marking, grammatical markers are attached to the head of the phrase. For instance, in a noun phrase, the markers will be found on the noun. An example in English is possessive constructions like John's book, where the possessive markers is attached to the head noun John. Pendant marking. In dependent marking, grammatical markers are attached to the dependents rather than the head. For instance, in the phrase a book of Johns, the possessive markers is attached to the dependent John rather than the head noun book. Veneman's contribution. The concept of head and dependent marking was notably discussed by Veneman in his work. The term was associated with the theoretical framework that compares how languages mark grammatical relationships and how this influences syntactic structure. Work and year. Veneman introduced this concept in his paper, Head and Dependent Marking, A New Perspective, published in 1975. This work laid out the theoretical distinctions and typological implications of how languages use head and dependent marking. Feel free to ask if you need more details or have other questions.
The next question is calc refers to the words borrowed from other language by literal translation. Now let's move on to the next one. The next is a theory of translation based on a comparison of the structure of the source language and target language rather than the comparison of the literary genres and the stylistic features is known as linguistic theory. Now, could you elaborate on what this statement means?
Certainly. The statement refers to the linguistic theory of translation, which emphasizes comparing the structural elements of the source and target languages when translating. Linguistic theory of translation. This theory focuses on how language structures, such as syntax, sentence structure, morphology, word formation, and semantics, meaning, compare between the source language, SL, and the target language, TL. It examines how the grammar and rules of each language influence the translation process. Key points. 1. Structural comparison. Instead of focusing on literary styles or genre-specific features, this theory prioritizes understanding how sentences and meanings are constructed in both languages. For example, how does a sentence's grammatical structure in English map onto its equivalent in Spanish? 2. Literal translation. The theory often involves translating text based on grammatical structures and vocabulary rather than adapting to literary style. This means ensuring that the translation maintains the same syntactic and semantic functions as in the original language. 3. Practical implications. For translators, this approach provides tools and methods for ensuring that the translated text adheres closely to the original language's structure, which can be particularly useful for technical or scientific texts where precision is crucial. In essence, the linguistic theory of translation helps in achieving accurate translations and by focusing on the structural equivalence between languages.
Now, the next question: which of the following involves the inclusion of meaning? Polysemy, synonymy, homonymy, hyponymy. And the correct answer is hyponymies, because hypernymy and hyponymy is the relation, explains the relation of inclusion within a category. Like, for example, there's a scarlet. Scarlet is covered under the red, right?
Yes, that's correct. Hyponymy involves inclusion of meaning. It's a relationship where one word, the hyponym, is a specific instance of a more general category, the hypernym. For instance, scarlet is a specific type of red, so scarlet is a hyponym of red. The term hyponymy explains this hierarchical relationship where the more specific term falls under the more general one.
The next question: Urdu dictionaries are reverse dictionaries. That's not correct. The second, in reverse dictionaries, the order starts from the place of the last letter. So one is false, but two is true. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Urdu dictionaries are not typically reverse dictionaries. Reverse dictionaries arrange words by their final letters or morphemes, but Urdu dictionaries are usually arranged alphabetically by the initial letters. Therefore, the first assertion is false, while the second assertion about reverse dictionaries is true.
Now, the next is glossary. Glossary includes the technical terms. Now, let's move on to the next one: POS tagging. So, POS tagging is used in computational linguistics for first option, breaking the sequential information into parts. Second, marking up a word in text according to the grammatical class that it belongs to. Third, putting the hardware in the computer for processing the speech, not correct. Fourth, simplifying natural language for computer in terms of binary property for easy pattern recognition. So the first, that is breaking sequential information into parts. Second, marking up word in text according to the grammatical class. And the third, that simplifying the natural language for computer in terms of binary property for easy pattern recognition. These are true.
Unknown caller.
Now, since these are true, so the correct option here should be A, B, and D are correct. So that's the correct one. Hello,
Hello.
how are you? हाँ यही हॉस्टल में ही हूँ
निकलो बाहर निकलो
आ रहा हूँ We'll continue when I come back. I'm gonna end this stream right now. This has been a fucked up session.